Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, and welcome back for URG's virtual training series. My name is Kristen Alexander, and we have Amanda Morrison on here as well. We are URG's member relations specialists. Today, we have Jim McKinney with Easy Suite. He is going to discuss the industry is changing, are you? So a little bit background about Jim McKinney. He always is on the cusp of innovation. So Jim McKinney applies his forward-thinking personality to his company, Easy Suite. With over 30 years in the automotive recycling industry, coupled with his company's willingness to adapt to changing times, Jim pushes the industry forward by developing software that makes sense to progressive-minded recyclers. So Jim, thank you again for joining today, and thanks for being willing to speak. I'll pass it off to you.
Yeah, thanks, Kristen. Thank you all for joining today. I hope you and your families, your employees and coworkers are all safe and healthy. I do have to tell you though, the timing of this webinar is really screwing up my schedule because here in Ohio, 2 p.m. is Wine with DeWine, our great governor. I had to skip that today. Also, here at the resort I'm quarantined in with my lovely wife, Tammy, 3 p.m. is the first happy hour of the day. I had to skip that as well. URG was fairly persistent for me to be sober while I did this. So my day is pretty screwed up right now. Who am I? Yes, that's a picture of me circa 1993. That was my first towing company that I bought, and I owned a repair shop at the time. I grew up a mechanic in my father's garage and transitioned into the industry with Mill Iron Auto Parts. Carl Mill Iron hired me as a dismantler, probably 97. I worked my way up to be a production manager and left the company and went to another yard that was acquired by Greenleaf. Greenleaf gave me an education, and I figured out that I like numbers and P&Ls and business. And when they, so I learned a lot there. When they were sold, Carl Mill Iron said, "Hey, why don't you?" I didn't want to stay, so he said, "Why don't you come back to work with me and be the GM at Mill Irons, and until you figure out what you wanted to do," because he knew I wanted to be self-employed in some fashion. So while I was the GM at Mill Irons, I designed Easy, the first version Easy Route, and Excel on that point, and it took off and became a company. And 10 years later, here we are, and that's all I do is Easy. So I want to talk a little bit about who we are. I told you we're recyclers. We have Mill Iron Auto Parts. We're also in transportation. We have Midwest Automotive Trucking, which is partnered with PRP and Phoenix and others, and we provide transportation for them. I want to touch quickly on the softwares. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I need you to understand some of the numbers that I'm going to show you and how they are derived. So this is Easy Route. This is a way for you to plan and track your own delivery trucks. This is Mill Iron Auto Parts deliveries, one of our routes for a day. You can, drag and drop and adjust routes and anything you can think of. But it helps you to manage efficient routes and gives everybody in your facility visibility to see the tracking and what's going on with the routes. We then developed Easy Runner, which is for groups such as PRP, Midwest, Phoenix. We generate a label, and we generate we calculate through an algorithm the most efficient way for a part to get from one recycler to another, and it is scanned and documented throughout the process from the originating yard to the ending yard with photos and notes and all kinds of different tools. And our latest product is Order Manager, or Easy QC, which is designed to manage your production process from after the point of sale until the end. And recyclers that are on this can can share with each other and communicate with each other regardless of YMS, etc. Our last product that I want to share with you is Easy Partner. Easy Partner is for the end customer. So it's for body shops, mechanical shops, and they can see things such as when their order is entered, some details about the order, images. They also can communicate through here. They can track their deliveries that are coming to them. They can see their order history and so on and so forth. So that's where this data comes from. A couple of highlights about the data to give you an idea of the scope we cover. This is a map of all the deliveries made in Easy Route in 2019. We tracked 2.6 million deliveries, recycled auto part deliveries across the country in 2019. This doesn't include Canada or other countries, just the United States. Just shy of $1 billion in sales. And an anecdotal note, the average yard delivers around 1,083 parts a month or deliveries per month in Easy Route. In Easy Runner, the yard to yard for PRP Midwest and the like, we now track 110,000 parts a month and just over 500,000 scans a month, which equates to about 25,000 scans a day. In Easy QC, we've had over 2.9 million orders added to the system since September. And since our launch in September, we have 52 recyclers installed. We have 5 mobile apps, around 4,300 active users in the system at any given time. A year ago, we were collecting around 180,000 images a month. Today, well over 360,000 a month, with 5.5 million in our database. Every minute, our system sees 35 pictures, 52 scans, 19 Easy Route delivery updates and notes, and thousands of scans, tracking points, thousands of tracking points every minute. So we have a lot of data coming and going. My opening remarks here, this is a picture of what was the last trade show. This was Carl and I's Midwest Easy Route Conference. We were fortunate to get that in before COVID came about. We had just shy of 300 people attend, so we were very, very happy with that. But it brings to mind to me that it's odd doing this webinar format, right? I'm used to speaking in person, and for me, those of you that know me, I like to pick on people, and it's difficult for me to do that in a webinar. But at our conference, when I finished our final session, I posed the question, what could we do better next year? And apparently I picked on David Bebesy from J&J Auto too much, because as soon as I said that, from the back of the room, he piped up and said, "More Carl, less Jimmy." So David has since been banned from any future events we have. But when URG asked me to do this, I thought to myself, what value could I provide? What could I bring to you? And I decided I would share what we were monitoring, what we were seeing in our data, and tips on mitigating through this crazy time that we're in. I've been through who we are. This is an overview of what we're going to cover here. The current state, we're going to talk about sales, production, delivery, and group numbers and statistics. And I'm going to provide an overall analysis of that. Then I'm going to talk briefly about managing through this downturn and how we position ourselves for the best outcome when we come out of this. We're going to come out of this and we are going to come out strong, but we need to position ourselves to do that. So we'll jump into some numbers here. These are QC orders. So these are orders, essentially you could see it as sales that are written every day into the system. In this graph, these are by the day, so I'm monitoring this daily from the 1st of March to yesterday. We have 22 states represented in this data, 52 recyclers all across the country, various sizes. Most recyclers have seen a 35 to 40% reduction overall. The good news is the curve started to flatten last week. So if we look at this and dig into this a little bit, these low points are Fridays. So Fridays are our slowest day of adding orders into the system as an industry. And this is the trend line. The good news about the last few days is we really started flattening out. There's other data I'll show you this in as well. Last Monday in particular was the first time we were higher than the previous Monday. Tuesday and Wednesday as well were both higher than the previous week. And it looks like it's starting to flatten out. This Friday was the holiday, and a lot of yards, I heard of a lot of yards closing and a lot half day and that kind of thing. And then, so Monday's number is expected to be down a little bit just because we didn't get the volume Friday as well, or the quotes out. And today is trending well. So I think we'll see another good number for tomorrow. One other interesting fact is the price per part on average is up 6%, which kind of surprised me. We are seeing an even greater flattening on the West Coast, especially in particular states such as Washington and Oregon, and even a very, very minimal, but a slight increase in some of these states. These are very important. We all remember that Washington was hit very hard in first, and some of the surrounding states and even down into California. So their pattern is likely, our pattern is likely to follow their pattern. In other states, New Jersey and New York remain the hardest hit at a 46 to even 50 or more % reduction. Not surprising due to what we're hearing, but we're seeing, good news and some good news in the medical numbers out of those states. So hopefully they'll clear. Honestly, the whole Northeast was hit very, very hard due to this. Now we're going to talk about delivery and group stats. We provide runner to 10 clients essentially. Now there's far more yards than that, but a client is PRP with their whole group, Midwest with their group, Phoenix, even some yards that have multi-locations, B&R. So this is all that data combined. And let's talk through this chart a minute. The blue stacks here are this year's number. So this is volume of parts traveling on the transportation system by week. So this is the 1st of January this year all the way to last week. The line represents last year's data. So we were seeing a significant uptick in volumes across these groups this year until the last 4 weeks. Let's talk about, we have PRP and Midwest we have formed a task force that I'm involved with. We sit down every Monday afternoon. We go over the numbers. We look at even more granular data down to the individual routes to try and make decisions. Maybe it's combining a route. Maybe it's, in the case of last week, our task force decided that we would close and not run the network on Good Friday, and the same is happening this week. We're trying to cap costs here. It's not a matter of cost reduction. The cost is somewhat fixed. It's a matter of capping these costs in this task force, but we're using the same data I'm showing you. Interesting thing about this line here, if we look at last year, we had the same drop or a similar drop just at a higher number. And so if we look at last week's data, we are 30% down in part volume year over year. If we look at, in this task force, we benchmarked ourselves against January and February numbers and parts per day or parts per week traveling on this network. If we benchmark ourselves this week against the first 2 months of the year, we're down 38%. While this thing doesn't predict the future, we've seen a lot of people have learned a lot about data modeling this last couple of weeks. And, we see the government projections and different scenarios from different entities that way over projected, some way over projected that. So this doesn't necessarily predict the future, but the cool thing is this line last year had the same trajectory. And in the following few weeks in April, I don't have this on the chart, but it increases. So while we won't see the same increase and we'll probably still see a loss, I would expect to see an increase in the coming weeks. And it's just ironic that it coincides with some of the timing of the country getting through this stuff. Again, if I separate the Western United States, they are really flattening out, and some have slight increases. All right, so we're going to move on to easy route deliveries. So these are deliveries that are made to the end customer, if you will. There was, these numbers are all similar. There was a sizable dip 3 weeks ago here, right? From this pillar to this pillar. Last week, or 2 weeks ago, we saw less of a dip, and last week, even less of a dip. Again, the trajectory from last year's deliveries, if I look at our data from last year, had the same downward trend. So I'm expecting or hoping that these flatten out in the coming weeks, very short order. This one's interesting. This is routes ran per day nationally. So a number, you could think of it as number of trucks or number of, in our case, it's routes. So if a guy delivers in the same truck 3 times, that counts as 3 routes. But they have decreased slightly. But there's interesting data in here. We should likely have a bigger reduction. If we look at a 35 to 40% loss in sales, this reduction should be greater. And we're still running a high volume of routes. The routes have only reduced by 25%, yet a 40% reduction in the number of deliveries. This is something we need to consider, and something I'm going to touch on in a couple other, in a few minutes here. This is a similar chart, but based on miles. So total miles driven by the week from the beginning of the year. Again, the same trend here. Interestingly enough, we drove more miles when we should have driven fewer, really. It doesn't, the miles don't correlate to the 40% loss of sales. The holiday week was similar last year. I talked about that. Again, not trying to sound like a broken record, but if you look at this, then the data says that it's a big leap, less of a leap, and far less of a leap, and I would expect that to continue. This is stops by drivers nationally. So how many, essentially how many shops nationally that they're delivering to. It was down by 37%, which is another indicator that a route consolidation needs to be done here for your delivery routes delivering to your end customers. So let's look at an overall analysis here of Easy Runner or the PRPs and Midwest of the world. I think there may not ever be a better time to join a trading group. Look, folks, this thing isn't going to last forever. As a matter of fact, I don't see it lasting very long. Now is the time to join a trading group. The great thing about trading groups is you can increase the footprint of which you can sell. Geographic markets that otherwise you wouldn't financially make sense to try and service, you can with these groups. They cover vast amounts of geography for a low number, a low dollar. And if I look at all these groups and I look at all the averages, it's $20 to $25 total cost to ship any part if you average it out in a regular year. So that's a headlight, a front end, an engine, it doesn't matter. That's the cost. So typically you couldn't get those parts in other markets for that kind of money, nor could you play. And now is certainly the time to find different venues to move product or purchase product. Another interesting thing, right before this all happened, Midwest and PRP announced that they were creating a cross-platform trading group. What that basically means, if I am a Midwest member, but I am not a member of PRP for a higher piece rate, in other words, a little more expense to moving a product, you can now trade with PRP members that also opt into the program. It's a very, very powerful thing. It is an expansion of what Carl and I believe in, and that is trying to get everybody to trade. The more the play, the better. So that has been a very, very powerful platform. And trading groups have been growing at a rapid pace. The last 12 months, I've not seen anything like it. And I think that trend is going to continue. It is the new thing. It's time to get involved. Now we'll shift to an overall analysis of Easy Route deliveries to your end customers. One of the reasons that Easy originally came about is, as an industry, us as recyclers, we didn't pay a lot of attention to post-sale performance, right? We were always worried about getting a sale. And I put in here, unless the wheel got squeaky. And what I mean by that is, we didn't pay a lot of attention until Johnny's Body Shop, when they ordered the part and we delivered the part, until Johnny's called and bitched because they got it late or they want to know where it's at or there was a problem. We didn't look into it. We didn't try and maximize that end of the business. It's now more important than ever to pay attention to that end of the business, guys and gals. It's Amazon's world. We just live in it, and the expectations are high. And just think of yourself ordering product, ordering something from Amazon. What do you expect? You're going to get delivery notifications. You're going to be kept up to date. There's going to be good documentation, hell, even pictures when they drop it off at your house. The same expectation is here for us today. But as shown in the numbers, we need to make some adjustments. Even yards that use our software need to adjust. Deliveries are very expensive, are a very expensive portion of our business, and now we can take better control of it due to this, different technologies. If we revisit the numbers, a 40% reduction in deliveries, yet only a 25% reduction in routes ran and a 20% reduction in miles. The simple math is, we need to raise that 20 and 25% closer to the 40. That's it. And a lot of that comes by simply looking at routes and combining routes, paying attention to data. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. We may not be able to get all the way there. We won't ever get to a 40-40 reduction, but we should strive to achieve that. All right, so how do we manage through the downturn? I know I probably don't need to say this. There's a lot of smart people on this call, and I'm sure you've all taken advantage of it, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention it. Take advantage of the PPP, easy for me to say, loans and other SBA loans and assistance. Look, I've never seen a government document that short for the amount of power it has. It's very simple. It's very easy to do. It's very easy to qualify. Really, you just have to prove your payroll. You don't have to personally guarantee the note. And if you use it for payroll, utilities, and rent, it is forgiven. So I'm sure you all know that, but I have to say it. Use that 2 months of payroll to keep more people than you need and prep for when we come out of this. So I'll give you an example. I have instructed our team to stop trying to sell. That doesn't mean if somebody calls us, we won't sell them. Of course we will. The last call any of you guys want to get right now is from somebody like us trying to sell you something. If we are calling you today, we're calling you to try and help you. We're calling you to try and see if there's anything we can do for you. We aren't out selling. Now, that's not the same in the yard business, but I'm just giving you an example of what we're doing. We are also working on things that help us come out of this as fast and as strong as possible. In other words, okay, it sucks right now, but what can we do to position ourselves for the fastest possible outcome? Some of the things we're doing We redid our whole website. That was something that has been put off for some time. Hell, our newest product wasn't even on it. So we have revamped the whole website. We are working through all kinds of documentation of videos and training and stuff that we've never done before that needed done, so that when it comes time to install for all this pent-up demand for our, especially our QC product, we're ready to roll. And that's the key to this. These are all the things we normally, quote unquote, don't have time to do. You know, we know we need to do these things, but you know, maybe we had the luxury of being too busy to do those things before. Today we don't. Join or start a group, no matter the size. You know, there's power in numbers, and I put in here, others will elevate you and you will elevate others. And that is very true. And I see it all the time. When yards join a group, it brings them up, not only financially and sales wise, but you see their processes and their procedures improve, and they become involved, and they start talking to more and more recyclers and sharing ideas. I've seen it over and over and over again. It's very important. If you're not a part of a group, it's the time to join. There's also something to be said about not being alone. And you know, in 07 and 08, when the bottom hit for everybody, it didn't hit us in Ohio at the auto parts. It hit us in 11, and it hit us out of the blue. I'll never forget, in September, I woke up and 40% of our sales were gone in a month. And it remained that way. And it took my thick head about 3 or 4 months before I finally figured out that it wasn't me. It wasn't something I could control. It wasn't something we were doing as a company. We had to work around it and figure out ways around it. Talking to recyclers and not feeling alone helps you get through those times and helps you find ways to get through these things. Inspect your delivery data, okay? All this data we're talking about. Inspect the data, be it through Easy Route, and we have tons more data than just in the report. So if you're a current customer and you want to work through something, reach out. We'll get you some data. We'll help you work through it. Or if you're not, look at your financials. Look weekly at your fuel bill. Look at your miles that guys are running. Have somebody spend the extra time to make sure you're being efficient. This is one of the few ways right now that you can cut costs that make sense, that don't affect your business or how you're delivering your services, how well you're delivering your services. Again, my team will help you for free, whether you're a customer of ours or not. We will not charge you. We will help wherever we can. Look to areas that maybe you shouldn't be delivering. You know, we've done a couple exercises with some larger yards where, look, it's time. We can do heat maps and show you. It's time to reel in some of these deliveries right now. We can't be delivering alternators 90 miles away. It's not worth it. Leverage FedEx and UPS for that stuff. I can tell you, based on 9 years of data, that the average cost for you to deliver is around $25 a stop. So stop picking up cores. You know, don't pick up a core under $50. It's just, unless you're making a sale of that shop and it's a regular guy that you're there every week, stop picking those up. It's just not worth it. It's not worth it to break even. Not worth it at all. The other thing that in this time we really need to do, stop sending your delivery trucks out 2 and 3 times a day. You know, we send our delivery drivers out at 8 in the morning and they come back at 10, and then we send them back out at 11 and they come back at 2, and then we send them back. Don't do that. Let your customers know. Tell your customers, hey, look, we're making changes so we can still service you and service you effectively. We're going to do 1 route a day. You know, plan it so the driver leaves at 8 and he comes home at 3, or he gets back at 5, or whatever it is. We're going to run 1 route. It's just not worth it. It costs you too much money, and this is a way that you can save. Managing through this, we've shown you a fraction of the data. If you are an Easy Route or runner customer and you have Smart Cycle, you can see all of your data in Smart Cycle, and there's a ton of stuff in there, guys and gals, a ton. Another point I wanted to bring up, talk with your team, be open and honest. You know, they can take it. They want directness. Many of us as leaders we may be some of the only leadership in some of these guys and gals' lives. We need to make sure we do a good job. I was talking with a good friend of mine this morning that runs a large yard in Michigan. And we were talking about this very thing, about being honest with your teams. And we also talked about how different people react when squeezed. You know, some people you squeeze them and you get the best out of them. Some people you squeeze them and they run and they're scared and the sky is falling. So pay attention to yourself and how you act when squeezed, and pay attention to your people and how they react when squeezed, and help them through it. Just a couple more things here. This is positioning for the best outcome. Okay. A Harvard study on the recession of 07 and 08 stated that 9% of companies came out of the recession stronger than they previously were. So only 9%. I'm going to read this to you because it's a direct quote, actually. The year-long study suggests that those that focus on cutting costs through operational efficiency and spend more than their rivals on marketing and research and development are most likely to come out as post-recession winners. In other words, if you cut costs effectively through operational efficiency and spend more than your competitors, the aftermarket and the others, and we do research and development, we're likely to come out winners in this. Companies that only cut costs heavily during a downturn do not flourish after ends. It's about a balance. You know, it's a balancing act. It's moderation. It's cutting costs in proper areas and increasing spending in some. One of the things that the report says, that Staples and it's competitive, you know, there's a lot of office stores out there. Staples did exactly this and came out way stronger in the back end. The others, most of which did not reach their pre-recession sales levels. They never met the level that they were before the recession hit. So it's clear evidence. If I give you an example of this in line of what we're talking about, pay attention to your delivery routes. Have a guy or two or a girl or two spend an extra hour or two a day going through those routes and making them as efficient as possible, whether it's my software or not. You can save $200 to $1,000 a day just by doing that. You know, so there's a way to cut the cost and then join a group and use the money you just saved to join a group if you're not in a group. So not by far not the only example, but a good example. A friend of mine who is a business consultant, when I told him I was giving this, I asked him for some tips. He gave me these next couple tidbits. Clarity over certainty. Certainty is about a feeling of absolute knowing, but clarity includes curiosity about other points of view. Certainty does not. It includes knowing what it is you did not know. Certainty does not think about not knowing. Clarity is resilient. Certainty is brittle. And to quote Stephen Stosny, a PhD, certainty itself is an emotional state, not an intellectual one. To create a feeling of certainty, the brain must filter out far more information than it processes. In other words, the more certain you feel, the more likely you're wrong. I particularly like that one. Lastly, be a victor, not a victim. I love this one. The problem with that we have with the victim mentality is we forget to see our blessings of the day. Because of this, our spirit is poisoned instead of nourished. Yes, look, we have to go through these bad things. We have to think about the bad things and talk about the bad things and work through them. But we also have to think about the good each day. I personally try and do that and spend time reflecting that my family, my kids, my grandkids, my wife, they're all healthy. They're all fed. They all have a place to live. So I'm very blessed, even if it's just that. Not to mention, I can find plenty of blessings within my business and my people. My people are strong. They're doing a great job. So find that every day. With that, I will open it up to questions if we have time. Kristen?
Yep. So what a great way to end the presentation, Jim. That was such a great quote. I know that kind of resonated to me as well. Anybody else that has any comments, questions, concerns, please drop them in either the chat box or the Q&A. We've had a lot of people kind of contribute to this so far, but you know, we'd love to see your questions or comments or anything like that.
So Fran Reitman asked, how many more yards are on last year than were on last year at this time? I don't know the number off the top of my head, Fran. I can get it for you. It's somewhere in that 30 to 30 plus mark just in Midwest alone. So it's pretty strong. Rachel Whetstone asked, did I hear that our easy team will help us look at the efficiency of their routes? Yes, we absolutely will, Rachel, especially you. You guys are a good business partner. Yep, just reach out. We'll take a look. How high the car count is affected during this. At the auctions, okay. I don't know, Tim. That's not data I have, so I don't have a way to track that currently. There's probably other people that could help you with this. And Fran also asked, do I feel that last year's weather had anything to do with the amount of parts transferred? You know, it's definitely a seasonal business. We all, especially us, you know, in the upper Midwest, we realize that. In the Northeast, we really realize that. But actually, I just think business has been so good over the last 12 months that that the counts are just continuing to go up. So just so you guys know, if you Tim asked the question about car counts, Smart Cycle can definitely help you with that. They have tons of data that they can help you figure that out.
And then Jim, I'm not sure if you saw the question in the Q&A. Copart counter has gone down almost 30K on their banner on website.
Yeah, so Brad Rose is letting us know that the Copart has actually went down 30,000. So that's interesting. Yeah, 30,000 units. Fran wanted me to point that out. Mark Canepa with PRP, do we see a decrease in sales corresponding to less miles driven now and future? Yeah, I do. My personal opinion is, you know, I saw this back when it hit in 08, and we were kind of on the back end of it because the miles driven, you know, dropped kind of slowly, a lot slower rate than this. I think we're going to see a great turnaround here because once they start opening it up, a lot of people are going to get on the road. This isn't like 08. So I think we will feel it. I think we're feeling it now. The body shops are pretty much drying up, you know, their backlogs and are slowing down. I think they've about hit their bottom as well. And I expect we'll see a rapid return when people hit the roads. Let's see. Matt Ehlers asked me, do you think it's smarter to run daily with smaller runs or keep larger runs and switch to alternating days for customer satisfaction and retention? My opinion is, as much as you can stand that, run daily. It's more consistent for your customers. Maybe you run 4 days a week and not 5. The other opinion I have on that is it depends on your mileage covered, Matt. I know you're in the middle of nowhere. If you're covering a big area, then yes, I would go to alternating days for sure. So Fran asks, if you had the chance to say who they will let go back to work first, who do you feel that will come back, office or factory staff? Both. I think I think what's going to happen is, and I'm not President Trump here, but I think what's going to happen is they're going to require businesses to make sure social distancing is in place. They're going to have to make sure that people have face masks. If you guys can find masks, I would probably start buying some. I think they're going to make us make sure we have 6 foot or more of separation. I think you're going to see the same in the restaurant industry, the hair salons, all these different, life is going to change in that fashion. I don't know that that's going to come back for a year. I think I was listening to John Tapper, the guy that does Bar Rescue or whatever, giving his segment on Fox, and he said that he thinks that it's going to be different for restaurants. If they used to service 300 people for lunch, they're still going to do it, but instead of from noon to 1, they're going to do it from 10 to 2, and it's going to be segmented in groups of 50 or 75. So it's just going to be, they're going to have to get creative about how they do business.
Yeah, it does. If you guys have any other questions for us or for Jim, you can always reach out to us at URG at support@u-r-g.com, and we can make sure we get those questions answered for you all. Thank you again, Jim, so much for presenting today and everybody for jumping on. Just a reminder for those of you who didn't know, Chad Counts will be our first presenter in the morning at 10 a.m. Central Time. He'll be talking about sales counters that pay for themselves. So we'd love for you all to join. Again, thank you, everyone, and thank you, Jim.
Rachel, there were 98 or 100 people attended. So